The Lin family's mansion sat like a sentinel over Victoria Harbor, its facade of dark teak and granite tinged blood red by the dying light of sunset. For generations, the Lins had risen from modest beginnings in Guangdong to become one of Hong Kong's wealthiest clans, their fortunes tied to shipping, real estate, and the trade in rare antiquities. At the heart of that legacy lay a pair of antique jade bracelets, one carved with dragons, the other with phoenixes, said to have been gifts from an imperial concubine, and whispered among elders to carry a curse. Only those deemed worthy by lineage and loyalty could wield their power. Those who coveted them out of greed would find themselves consumed. On the eve of their parents' funeral, the three Lin siblings, David, May, and Jonathan, gathered in the wood-paneled drawing room where the jade lay displayed on a silk cushion beneath a crystal chandelier. Pale portraits of their ancestors watched from the walls. A heavy hush fell as their elderly family counsel, Mr. Chung, cleared his throat. "Your parents instructed me to distribute these heirlooms as they deemed fit. May their spirit guide your choices." David, the successful but burdened eldest, stepped forward, his tailored suit immaculate. He lifted the bracelets reverently. They belonged to mother and father. They wanted us to honor tradition. May, the devoted middle daughter engaged to the earnest investor Aaron Chung, reached for the dragon bracelet. "I will wear this at my wedding," she said softly. Her voice quivered, betraying the grief behind her poised facade. She carefully slid the cool jade over her wrist. Jonathan, the youngest, charismatic in his tech startup circles but always feeling overshadowed, smiled thinly at the phoenix bracelet. "A sign of rebirth," he murmured, fastening it on. His eyes flicked to May's gratitude and David's solemn nod. In that moment he vowed silently, when opportunity arose, he would claim not only the jade, but the power it symbolized. Later that night, David retired to his study to memorialize his parents in writing. May grieved in her room in preparation for her wedding plans, and Jonathan crept through the gardens, careful to avoid the live surveillance cameras Mr. Chung had installed after a minor break-in last year. The moonlight glimmered off the jade on May's wrist as he slipped past her bedroom. With a deft motion learned from his gadget crafter's childhood, Jonathan picked the lock on May's jewelry box, extracted her bracelet, and whispered to the night, "Forgive me, but destiny demands it." When May awoke at sunrise to dress in her mother's silk qipao for the funeral procession, the dragon bracelet was gone. Her scream echoed through marble corridors. David's study door burst open. The siblings converged in horror as Mr. Chung arrived in a flurry of indecision. The jade was not simply a bracelet, it was the anchor of their family's legacy. Its disappearance portended misfortune beyond mere theft. David locked eyes with Jonathan. "Where is it?" he demanded. Jonathan forced concern onto his features. I thought you moved it to the safety deposit box," he stammered. His palms were slick with sweat. May's anguish turned to icy fury. "You touched it! I know you did!" Her fiancé, Aaron, arrived breathless at the door, having rushed from the chapel. May turned to him, tears brimming. "Help me! They've taken it!" Aaron's face hardened with protective resolve. "We will find it. Do not worry." He led May to his car, intent on searching every corner of the estate. Meanwhile, Jonathan retreated to the servant's wing, clutching the phoenix bracelet in his trembling hand. He repeated the whispered legend, how greed would doom those unworthy. His rational mind rebelled, but he convinced himself the auction's windfall would restore his perceived failures. Jonathan slipped the treasure into his suitcase. Outside, in the harbor mist, a lone sampan glided by with two figures who exchanged a nod, an all-seeing presence marking the first flutter of the cursed jade's power. Jonathan Lin awoke before dawn, the first pale rays of morning seeping through gossamer curtains. His childhood memories swirled, rugged village streets of Guangdong, the cramped apartment where he and his siblings shared a single bed, the promise whispered by his parents that challenging work would bring them wealth and respect. David's scholarship, May's artistic talents, and Jonathan's entrepreneurial spark had carried the family from modest rice fields to the gleaming skyline of Hong Kong. Yet, standing alone in his spacious room, walls adorned with patents and startup awards, Jonathan felt the old ache of being the forgotten son. Downstairs, his older brother David practiced Tai Chi in the courtyard, graceful movements repeating like a meditation. David's success at Lin and Company had turned him into a pillar of the community, mentor to young protégés, protector of the family name. May, radiant in her new wedding gown, flitted between her fiancé Aaron Cheng and her childhood nanny, humming a soft melody. Joy and commitments wove around the three, but Jonathan hovered on the fringes, his ghostly pale jade bracelet hidden beneath his sleeve. He stepped into the cool morning air, inhaling the scent of lotus blossoms drifting from the ornamental pond. A servant's gentle bow invited him to breakfast, but he waved her off. He had other matters to attend. Inside his private office, Jonathan unlocked a hidden drawer beneath the mahogany desk. The stolen jade bracelet lay nestled against layers of black velvet, its green translucence ominous. He picked it up, rolling it between his thumb and forefinger. A pang of guilt shot through him, May's tearful face from last night's funeral replayed behind his eyelids. But grief for her was fleeting, eclipsed by the glittering prospect of auction profits. He tapped a secure message into his phone. To Mr. Lamb, Confidential Auction Services. Jade Lot, hash 3827. Arrange private sale at 10 a.m. next Friday. Buyer guarantee provided. Discretion imperative. Seconds later, a reply confirmed. Understood. Net proceeds 85% to your account following sale. Lotus Vault protected. He exhaled, voice barely a whisper. Thank you. Across the hall, Jonathan paused at a photograph of the family's matriarch and patriarch, his parents beaming with pride as David and May received honorary medals from the government. He lingered on his own unborn image, tucked in the corner, overshadowed. When would the world pay attention to Jonathan Lin? He closed his eyes, feeling the jade's ancient power burn against his palm, as though awakening at his command. That evening, the Lin mansion shimmered under strings of crystal lanterns in preparation for May's wedding reception. Lanterns swayed above tables of white linens, peony centerpieces, and polished silverware. May glowed in her silk qipao, hugging childhood friends and welcoming cousins. David presided over the family, effortlessly balancing emotion and duty, guiding a teary posterior toast from their Aunt Mei Ling. Jonathan watched from the periphery, his hand resting on the jade hidden in his blazer pocket. When May and Aaron climbed onto the stage, David lifted his champagne flute high. To my beloved sister and her new husband, he announced, may your union be as enduring and vibrant as our family legacy. Glasses clinked, May and Aaron beamed. Later, amid the far end of the garden, Jonathan slipped away from the laughter and applause. He navigated a walled path of jasmine and ginkgo trees, blood pounding in his ears. He found the wrought iron gate that led to the auctioneer's car, waiting discreetly by the service entrance. He placed the bracelet into a velvet-lined case and handed it to the driver, whose nod was curt but respectful. As the engine purred to life and slipped into the night, Jonathan returned to the party, face impassive. Beneath his calm exterior, a darker current swirled, envy, shame, and the intoxicating promise of the jade's value. The next morning, David found Jonathan in the study, his tie loosened, eyes rimmed with red. Concern softened David's features. "Jonathan, are you all right?" he asked, closing the French doors behind him. Jonathan forced a tight-lipped smile. "Just didn't sleep well." David stepped closer, placing a hand on his brother's shoulder. May nearly collapsed searching for her bracelet. Remember? Family first. Jonathan's jaw clenched. I know. David studied him, worry flickering in his eyes. You can talk to me. Whatever is troubling you, we face it together. Jonathan withdrew. Everything's fine, David. Really. He went to leave, but paused. David held his gaze. No words passed between them, but a silent plea lingered. Come clean, or be consumed by the flame of your own making. Later that day, Aaron pulled May aside by the koi pond. Your brother, he seems off. I do not trust what he is hiding. May placed a calming hand on his arm. Jonathan's going through grief. We lost Mom and Dad. He is allowed to mourn. Aaron's face hardened. Family loyalty is one thing, covering up theft quite another. Before May could respond, a servant announced afternoon tea with the board of Lynn, and Company May's pulse quickened. The Jade auction was tomorrow. She felt a disquiet she could not name. On Friday at 9:45 a.m., Jonathan received the first deposit to his secure account. $1,100,000, marked net sale proceeds. The jade bracelet's emerald sheen may have vanished, but its power remained. He held the cursed token for power and validation. Minutes later, the back office of Lynn and Company buzzed. May entered with Aaron. Oblivious to her missing jade, David greeted them, brimming with pride. The board chair, Mr. Wong, rose to propose May's wedding bonus and to raise a toast to her happiness. At the podium, David's voice faltered only once. To my sister, may your marriage be as enduring as these jade relics, even though, at this moment, one has gone missing. Laughter rippled. May forced a smile. Jonathan watched, guilt flickering in his eyes, then masked it with a toast of his own. To family! Each sibling raised their glass, but the shadows in their eyes spoke of secrets and betrayal. As the luncheon ended, David and May returned to the mansion. Jonathan slipped away to his penthouse, the jade's ghostly echo in his palm. A storm rumbled over Victoria Harbor, a portent of the dark currents now unleashed in their once unnamed golden lineage. A week after the funeral, twilight draped the Lynn estate in purples and grays, and Jonathan Lynn felt the weight of destiny pressing on him as he slipped from his siblings' watchful eyes. Behind the grand facade, servants had long learned the rhythms of the Lynn household. Dinner at 7, cards by the parlor piano afterward, and lights out by 10. But tonight, Jonathan moved like a wraith, determined to claim what he believed was his birthright. The mansion's corridors lay silent. Portraits of stern-faced ancestors watched from above mahogany wainscoting. Their carved frames gleamed in the muted glow of oil lamps. Jonathan paused before May's door, his knock soft enough to pass as a cousin's midnight confusion. When no response came, he inserted a slender pick into the lock. With a click, the door yielded. Inside, May's bedroom exuded warmth. The plum-colored silk drapes shielded the room from the night breeze. A faint perfume, May's signature jasmine and sandalwood, lingered. On her dresser, beside a silver-framed photo of May and Aaron at their engagement party, lay the stolen dragon bracelet atop a plush velvet pad. The jade glowed like an ember in the darkness, its intricate carvings forming a coiled dragon that seemed to watch Jonathan's every move. His breath caught at the sight, the bracelet he had coveted for days, now within his reach. He lifted it carefully, cradling the antique in his palm. The jade's surface was cool and heavy, the carved dragon's eyes set with tiny rubies that caught the lamplight even through the curtains. A prick of conscience urged him to return it, but greed and envy urged him forward. He slipped the bracelet into the inner pocket of his blazer, an expensive Armani piece he rarely wore, and closed the drawer over the empty velvet cushion. A soft creak in the hallway jolted Jonathan. He froze, heart pounding. Steps approached. Someone was coming. He dashed to the far corner of the room behind a chaise longue, just as May's silhouette appeared at her door, rubbing her eyes in confusion. "Sis," May whispered, voice thick with sleep. "Jonathan." Jonathan ducked lower, keeping his breathing steady. May blinked, scanning the room. Her gaze fell on the open drawers. Her eyes widened in panic. "Where's my bracelet?" she cried, backing away. Jonathan's mind raced. If she discovered her brother had taken it, the family would fracture irrevocably. But safety lay in silence. He had only seconds. A distant floorboard creaked. Another sibling? Guest. Uncle Wong, their mother's cousin. Checking on them? Jonathan seized a nearby silk throw, tossed it over the chaise, and slipped out the door. His footfalls were thunder in his ears, yet the darkness swallowed him as he retreated to the servants' wing. May stumbled from her room, heart hammering. She caught David at the end of the corridor, phone to his ear, summoning Mr. Cheng, the family council. "David!" she gasped. He rushed to her side, concern etched in every line of his face. "May, what is it?" She pressed trembling fingers to her wrist. "My jade bracelet. It's gone." Tears pooled. "Someone stole it last night." David's gaze narrowed. "Who had the key?" May's eyes fluttered with uncertainty. Then she looked away. I always left it there." She held her trembling hand out. "Now it's gone." A moment of stunned silence passed before David's expression sharpened into resolve. "I will secure the estate. No one leaves until we find it." May placed a hand on his arm. "David, please be gentle with Jonathan." David nodded, though his jaw remained tense. "I'll manage it carefully." Downstairs, Jonathan sat in the servants' corridor, heart hammering, the jade bracelet hidden beneath his blazer. He overheard David's commands echoing. "Check every door, interview staff. No one exits without permission." Jonathan pressed his back against the cool wall, mind racing. He could not return the jade. Too much was at stake. He had already arranged for its auction at the Lotus Vault in Central, under a code name, netting over $1 million HKD. The money was wired to Jonathan Lin Investments, controlled by a shell whose sole purpose was private deals. He exhaled slowly, convinced he would walk away with both fortune and freedom. Yet, as he crept back to his suite, a sliver of doubt cut through the excitement. Did the curse truly exist? The jade might be a simple antiquity, but legends of misfortune never die easily. He shook off the thought with a bitter laugh. Belief was for others. Morning found the Lin siblings in crisis. Mr. Chung oversaw the search. Servants held their glossy phones to their ears, scanning security footage. Guards locked gates and marked visitor logs. David subpoenaed IoT sensors, cross-referencing motion detectors. May, distraught, leaned on Aaron's shoulder. Aaron's voice was calm, but his eyes flickered with an ambition that made May's stomach twist. When Jonathan arrived at breakfast, as if nothing had happened, the siblings turned on him in unison. David's expression was grim. May's tearful plea melted to suspicion. Aaron's supportive comfort morphed into icy challenge. "Where were you last night?" David asked. His tone was bolder than family courtesy allowed. "And why are your hands so cold?" Jonathan blinked. "I could not sleep. I was out on the balcony." May clenched her fists under the tablecloth. "And why does Aaron say he saw you leave the house around midnight?" Aaron's raised eyebrow was validation enough. Jonathan swallowed. "I was in the library, reviewing some old family records." His eyes darted to the opposite wall, where a live security feed monitor glowed behind the butler's desk. He searched the monitor. No sign of his figure in the halls. David's hand slammed on the table. "Don't lie to me, Jonathan." Aaron slipped a conservatively folded photograph onto the table. A still from a grainy security camera showing a shadowed figure, Jonathan's silhouette, stepping out of May's room at 2:17 a.m. The family council cursed under his breath. Confronted, Jonathan's calm facade cracked. He rose, voice cold. "This is ridiculous. May's just upset. She lost something precious. I have not stolen anything." But the photograph spoke louder than his protests. May's eyes welled. David reached for Aaron's hand and squeezed. The siblings shared a look of betrayal. A silent pact formed in that moment. They would uncover the truth, no matter how painful. Top of form, bottom of form. By the time the morning sun spilled gold across Victoria Harbor, the Lin family's secrets had exploded onto every front page in Hong Kong. The South China Morning Post headline blared in bold crimson, "Lin Xian accused of jade heist and patent theft." Below, a grainy photograph, Jonathan's silhouette snatching a bracelet, hovered above an article detailing the alleged crime. Adjacent, the HK Finance Daily ran, "Family betrayal rocks. Lin conglomerate. Scion in scandal." May crouched on the parlor floor, clutching her phone, tears streaming unchecked. Aaron sank beside her, his arm a steady anchor. "They've published my private emails, too. David accused me of plotting against Jonathan," May whispered, voice cracking. David rushed into the room, face ashen. Beside him, Mr. Chung brandished a tablet. "They have found an image of your patent files, Ming-Tech algorithms, posted on a forum under Phoenix Code. They claim you stole from Lin and Company." May's head snapped up. "Ming-Tech? Those are my designs from our own R&D lab." David's hand trembled on the tablet. "They say Jonathan posted them. They are connecting this jade theft to corporate espionage." Aaron's jaw set. "We can fight back. We have evidence." They all glanced at Jonathan, who stood in the hallway, eyes cold and defiant. He held the Phoenix bracelet like a trophy, looped around his wrist. May rose, rage igniting. "You!" she thundered, then caught herself. Her humiliation at the front-page rumors festered into a feral determination. "We will clear this, I swear." David placed a calming hand on her shoulder. "First, we need a press statement. Clarify the facts." May nodded. Aaron tapped his phone. "I'll draft it and send to every major outlet." An hour later, a terse, 3-sentence press release hit every newswire. Mei Lin refutes all allegations of theft and complicity in jade misappropriation. Investigations remain ongoing. We will cooperate fully and expect a prompt retraction of false reports. But in the court of public opinion, half-truths often clung longer than facts. That afternoon, the family convened in the boardroom. Lin and Company executives sat at marble tables, glancing nervously at their iPads. David paced before a projected slideshow. Security footage anomalies, IP address logs, Jonathan's forged signature, patents registered in his name. The executives murmured. One senior vice president, Mr. Lau, spoke up. "If Jonathan's ejected, the board risks his lawsuit under the Founders' Rights Act. We need absolute proof." David met his gaze. "We have it, and we have an expert handwriting analysis confirming the will forgery." He clicked to a side-by-side comparison of real and forged signatures. "This is incontrovertible." There was a silent moment, then the board unanimously passed a resolution. Jonathan Lin is suspended from all Lin and Company roles pending full legal resolution. All corporate accounts and intellectual property must remain under David and May's control. Jonathan's face flamed. He snapped the projector remote in two, sparks dancing. Executives jumped. Jonathan stormed out, leaving a trail of broken acronyms and fear behind him. As news of Jonathan's suspension spread, so did new scandal threads. Theories that May and David conspired to oust him. Speculation about Aaron's role in leaking the photos. Forums thrummed with usernames spitting venom and conspiracy theories. May, trembling, felt the weight of every pair of eyes turned in her direction. In the kitchen, Aaron squeezed her hand. we'll weather this." She nodded, though her heart felt like a fishhook twisting in a dark pond. That night, Jonathan sat alone in his apartment, the Phoenix bracelet glinting on the coffee table. He reviewed online articles, comments, memes. Golden Sun falls from grace. Family dynasty in flames. Who's the real thief? Beneath the rage, a flicker of fear dawned. The Jade's curse may have been more than legend. The stolen bracelet felt like a live wire against his skin. He had ignited a scandal that might consume them all. Outside, rain pattered against neon-lit streets. Jonathan rose, slipping on a trench coat, and vanished into the night, determined to reclaim what he believed was rightfully his, no matter how deep the darkness he must traverse. The Lynn mansion was a powder keg. The morning after Jonathan's suspension, board members arrived on the marble drive, faces set in concern. Arun Cheng, now rehired by David as a consultant, met Mei in the grand foyer. "The hostile takeover threat is real," Aaron warned quietly. "We need to shore up shareholder loyalty." David paced in the drawing room, the jade boxes still locked away. "Jonathan's allies among the younger generation could vote against us. We need to act fast." Within hours, Aaron tapped into his network of rival tycoons. He arranged a discreet meeting at the Peninsula Hotel's private suite, inviting major shareholders. He presented evidence of Jonathan's data theft and the forged will, laced with projections of David's ethical leadership. By midday, just enough votes shifted in David's favor to block any coup attempts. As the shareholders dispersed, David exhaled heavily. Mei embraced him. "Thank you. Without Aaron's help, we would be toast." David gave her a wary look. His methods are aggressive, but necessary. His gaze flicked down the corridor where their parents' portraits loomed. For the family. Aaron departed into the rain, smirking. Revenge was sweeter when it served both family and personal ambition. That night, Jonathan received word of the failed takeover. He slammed his fists into the walls of his tiny apartment. The rain battered the window panes as he vowed vengeance. He drafted letters promising retribution to shareholders, to his siblings, to Aaron. Greed and desperation coiled in his mind. The Jade's curse whispered, "Those who steal from kin shall burn in their own fire." Mei could no longer ignore the nagging doubt that her father's intentions had been betrayed. In the family archives, she pored over every draft of his will. David and Aaron escorted her to a dusty tome, a sealed codicil bearing her father's signature, alongside Jonathan's name as the sole heir should others prove unsuitable. She pressed her cheek against the glass, heart pounding. David produced a letter from Mr. Cheng. "This signature is a forgery. Your father would never have disinherited you or David. Jonathan colluded with counsel to draft the codicil." Mei's vision blurred with tears. Her engagement ring slipped from her finger and clattered across the marble floor. Aaron retrieved it, eyes sorrowful. "We need to expose this," he said, "publicly, if necessary." David nodded. He authorized an emergency board resolution to invalidate the codicil and launch legal action against the council who had participated. The family council's license was suspended, and an investigation began. Jonathan, learning of the authenticity challenge, smirked in his apartment. If he could discredit Mei's evidence, plant doubt in the board's minds, he might yet reclaim his inheritance. He hired a forensics counter-expert to forge a new, authenticated signature analysis. That night, Mei lay awake in her room, the original will's unsealed copy clasped to her chest. She whispered to the Jade's memory, "I will honor my father's true wishes, or die trying." The mansion's banquet hall glittered under 100 candles for Thanksgiving. The long table groaned with roasted goose, chestnut stuffing, and candied yams. Family and executives sat in tense silence, David at the head, Mei at his right, Aaron at her left, and Jonathan conspicuously absent, replaced by an empty chair. As plates were passed, May rose. "A toast," she said, voice firm, "to truth and to those who cherish it above all else." Glasses chimed. Murmurs rippled. Moments later, an advisor ushered in a folder sealed with the council's insignia. David opened it. Inside lay the forensic report affirming May's forgery claim and emails between the council and Jonathan. Gasps filled the room. The patriarch's family council, once their father's confidant, had betrayed them for personal gain. Suddenly the doors burst open. Jonathan stormed in, rain spattering his suit. He brandished a document backed by another expert analysis. "This is the genuine codicil," he shouted. "You'll regret this falsehood." May stepped forward. "Your analysis is as hollow as your conscience." Aaron rose. "Jonathan, you are done. We have proof. You will stand trial." Jonathan glared at his siblings. "You'll pay for this." He stormed out, the doors slamming behind him. The family sat in stunned silence. Their feast, intended for gratitude, had become a battleground. May covered her mouth as tears surfaced. David rested a comforting hand on her shoulder. The roasted goose cooled under flickering candlelight, once sumptuous, now tasteless. Emboldened by their victories, David turned to consolidating Lynn and company against external threats. But Aaron, thirsting for vengeance after his own ousting months before, unleashed his coup. He purchased a significant stake in Lynn and Company stock through shell entities, quietly rallying disaffected shareholders. The proxy battle blindsided David. One morning, May found David in his office, staring numbly at the screen. "They've flipped votes," he said. "Aaron's pushing a motion to replace me as chairman." May swallowed. "We need to fight back, or leave." They raced through legal channels, emergency injunctions, SEC complaints against Aaron for undisclosed holdings, and a media campaign exposing his earlier insider deals. Yet Aaron's siege was methodical, bribing clerks for early ballot counts, leaking confidential memos to the press. His final blow came when he exposed David's confidential expansion plans to a rival conglomerate, undermining investor trust. The board summoned them to an emergency vote. In the hushed ballroom, shareholders, many swayed by Aaron's promises, cast their ballots. The vote was 52% in Aaron's favor, to replace David with Aaron as chairperson. Tears welled in May's eyes as she watched her brother's name fade from the lectern. David, face pale, collected himself and approached the dais. "You have heard the vote. Lynn and Company must evolve, but not at the expense of our values." He stepped down. The old guard, distraught, dispersed. May escorted David to a waiting car. Aaron ascended the dais, triumphant. May's heart shattered. With the family business under Aaron's control and May's inheritance intact but tarnished, Jonathan cracked. He spent his days in a dingy apartment, bills piling up. His one connection, a banker named Fong, warned him the shell companies funding his escape routes were drying up. Driven by rage, Jonathan plotted his final act, sabotaged the Jade's legacy completely. He orchestrated a data leak revealing Marcus Lynn's predecessor's improper kickbacks, another stain on the Lynn name. He then attempted to hack Lynn & Co's new servers, but encountered Lynn & Co's upgraded cybersecurity led by May's protege, Alvin Cheng. Cornered, Jonathan fled Hong Kong by private ferry to Macau, vowing to return with proof of Aaron's insider trading and David's negligence. His brother's empty chair in the family team haunted him. He cradled the Phoenix bracelet, dark jade glowing ominously in the bay's neon lights. 2 years later, the Lin dynasty lay in ruins. Aaron's hostile takeover efforts had backfired. His insider trading scandal led to prison. He was fined billions and disbarred. David resigned from the battered Lin & Company, forming a small ethical investment fund. May's art gallery thrived, but took no shareholders. Jonathan faded into obscurity, the Jade's phoenix lost forever. May and David met in the empty drawing room as the final auction of jade fragments concluded with no bidders. They stood beneath the portrait of their parents, now dust-covered. May slipped a simple silver bracelet onto her wrist, the only heirloom she claimed. David placed a hand on her shoulder. "We saved each other from ruin." May nodded, eyes glistening. "The jade cursed us, but greed killed the sentiment behind it." They walked out into the twilight of the harbor, knowing vengeance had cut deeper than the sharpest jade, and that some legacies deserved to remain buried.